This Sunday, the CBS Sports Network is continuing the conversation on racism in sports and society. Portraits in Black will devote the day to telling stories that focus on the experiences of Black athletes and highlight their stories that are often untold. Here's a preview.
The senseless shooting of Jacob Blake has led to anger, frustration, and disbelief as the question remains, what can we do to make this a safer, more inclusive country for all people? We at CBS Sports are proud to present Portraits in Black, 5 programs that honor the stories and struggles of Black athletes.
We had a good freshman season. They could see that we had talent and that we just weren't there, as a token person that couldn't play ball.
As a football player, your name was known across the state. Although it's in athletics, that just might be the door to prove what else we can do.
When Ned and Greg came, it was a hallelujah moment. We could identify with those guys. They were our Jackie Robinsons.
We'll just save a lot of time and a lot of breath because you are no longer on this football team.
We all would have preferred to be on the field, but we made a choice and we stood by that choice.
We weren't protesting the people. We were protesting the attitude, what was happening to us on the field.
We just decided enough was enough.
The dispute remains unsettled. Neither the coach nor the Blacks will back down.
I was getting threats on my life, as were others. Yeah, it's not a good feeling.
As a girl, your road's going to be different, and if you're a girl that's Black, it's going to be very hard.
Arthur talked about Althea a lot. He saw how Althea had to smile through adversity. He learned from the way that she dealt with it.
She did it under circumstances that were just impossible, not even challenging. That's not even the word. The word is impossible, and she really achieved the impossible.
In our communities, we are trained and raised to survive, not thrive. So for us, seeing a Black man on the ground with a police officer's knee in his neck, that's normal to us.
Does it make me angry? Yes. But do we have to have those conversations with not only our husbands, but with our son? Yes, because we have to protect him.
What we need to do is also show the underbelly of society in all of these places that we love and pull back the curtain and talk about the uncomfortable things.
I remember when Colin Kaepernick kneeled for the first time, and at the time I didn't understand what was being done. And I took the time to educate myself and see that it is simply saying you will not stand proud for what's going on in this world today with the oppression of Black people and how African-American race is treated.
The protest, we all know it's not about the flag, all right? We know what it's about.
This isn't just about Breonna. It's about just a lot of injustices being done by the police. All I really want to say to people is, imagine if it was your child. Imagine that this happened to your child. What would you want to have happen? What do you think should be done?
So CBS News special correspondent and host of the NFL Today, James Brown, joins me now to discuss how the network's helping to move this discussion forward. James, you are hosting 5 hours of programming. You could probably do 5 days. This could be a long-running series because there are so many stories that have not been told. But break down the 5 hours for us. What will we see and hear?
Anne-Marie, first of all, good to be with you again. And there are so many stories that could be told, but these certainly synopsize what has been the ongoing issue. The 5 hours of programming, I guess you could call it the predicate, if you will. There's got to be a retrospective of what has been happening in the past, and we show that so many people follow sports, but prayerfully they'll look at and, more importantly, hear with their hearts, see with their hearts what athletes have been going through insurmountable odds and obstacles that have been overcome, and athletes advocating on behalf of their communities, and essentially what is a human rights issue. So we do take a look back, but we also bring it forward to include those things that you heard in the sound bites that athletes are going through today. But so many of the young people are saying this has to be dealt with now. That's why you saw players striking across the leagues, the WNBA, soccer, Major League Baseball, the NHL, and that's what the athletes of today are saying. There needs to be a serious commitment for real change now.
Yeah. And, you know, I think we love to, in this country, to celebrate the accomplishments of our athletes, to praise their hard work, their ability to overcome challenges. But the truth of the matter is that many Black athletes who have chosen to speak out, who have decided that one of the challenges that they will overcome and pull everyone along with them are the challenges that they face because of racial inequality. There was a price to pay for that. You know, most recently, I think everyone knows about Colin Kaepernick, and what he did certainly has served to push the conversation forward, push the conversation into the general public, you know, off the field. But he still doesn't have a job. I mean, he has a job,
and sadly,
but you know what I mean? Like, he's still not being hired by a team.
Sadly, that's the price so many before Colin Kaepernick have had to pay, and that highlights the problem as well. If one is shedding light on the truth, Anne-Marie, why is that a problem? Why is there a pushback? Why should there be punitive measures taken in that regard? The Black 14 at Wyoming is one of the stories that shows that it was happening back then. These players were dismissed from the team for exercising their First Amendment right, peacefully so, to try to address the issue. But yet the mindset of those, the coach and others, was such that, well, this is not going to be tolerated, and they were excused and dismissed from school. Some 50 years later, yes, they get called back by the school to essentially say that they were wrong, but not the coach. An apology is extremely cathartic and helpful, and that's yet to come from those who had charge over the youngsters. But it doesn't diminish the advocacy on behalf of what is right for all.
Mm-hmm. Now, during the civil rights movement, it was very difficult for athletes to ignore what was happening in the country, and some chose to put their careers on the line. You focus on Althea Gibson and Arthur Ashe. These are tennis stars. Can we talk a little bit about their choices during the civil rights movement and the changes that they were able to accomplish as a result?
Well, if you look at Althea Gibson, a woman, a Black woman competing, she perhaps was the best athlete of her time. So she had a double challenge in that regard, but yet she understood, and she, as one of the Williams sisters said, dealt with it with grace and a smile, but you know how much it was hurting her. She was even marginalized, if you will, when the stadium, the Arthur Ashe Stadium, rightfully so, in New York, also had a big statue of him in front of the stadium. Althea Gibson had a little plaque, but finally that was rectified. She has her own statue indicative of all that she overcame in advocating for women and pushing the social needle forward. Arthur Ashe, as elegant, intelligent, and inclusive an individual as he was, he actually created organizations to teach and work through the system advocacy on the behalf of athletes. I was humbled to be a part of one of those groups addressing the issue with college athletes to make sure that they were meaningfully engaged. So those are kind of efforts that they took as well, and both were going in the right direction to galvanize as many people as possible to advocate on behalf of what was right, properly so, because it's a human issue.
You know, I got to say, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, that Althea Gibson's story is one I really did not know. I think a lot of people are familiar with Arthur Ashe. There are tennis academies with his name on it, but Althea Gibson, not so much. But can we talk a little bit more about her accomplishments and also how sort of the current crop of Black women athletes, how they are drawing from some of the choices and decisions she made in order to push their social justice platforms?
Well, you know, we hear the often expressed wording that we stand on the shoulders of others. That clearly is the case with respect to Althea Gibson. Anne-Marie, she was one of the greatest athletes this country has ever produced. Her voice may have been in her excellence, not just in tennis with what she did that was groundbreaking, but in golf as well. Two extremely competitive sports, and she was the best of them all in terms of well-rounded talent. And the fact that she dealt with those issues without a coalition behind her speaks volumes of her determination and courage in doing such. And it's so nice to hear young athletes of today paying homage to her because she is deserving of that. So you're right. And the stories, the programming on Sunday, the 5 hours of programming, will introduce to some, remind others of what these athletes have done and how much is owed to them in terms of what they're doing. And the athletes, is so wonderful to see. They're not just thinking of feasting on the lush and the success and the compensation that they get for it, because many people recognize they come from those same communities. And even if you didn't come from that same community where those issues are still so ingrained, they are human beings who are advocating for the same opportunities on a basic level as anyone else would be accorded or afforded. And that makes sense. And again, it's wonderful to see the solidarity with athletes today who are simply saying, this has been going on way too long, 400 years plus. Can we not tackle this as a human rights issue because we're all in this together? If we are, then let's approach it together, because it's not a black problem. It is a human problem, and it's only going to be solved with white involvement as well, because it is a human rights issue. So hopefully this programming will have people look at their accomplishments in a much broader light. It's really demeaning when you hear people say, just play tennis, just play basketball. We don't want to hear you do that. That's the kind of colonizing attitude that so many have had up until this point that is unfair, it's dismissive, and it's wrong.
You know what, James Brown, I give you an amen for that one. Thank you so much. This is must-see viewing on a Sunday. I don't care what you're doing. Spark up your barbecue and then come back inside and turn it on. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
All right, you can watch Portraits in Black this Sunday on CBS. It starts at 1 p.m. Eastern. CBS Sports' James Brown will host 5 hours of programming devoted to the experience of Black athletes.